Damn, stream hadn't even properly started and we already had a bot in the chat. But hello, everyone, to everyone just joining, everyone watching things back, whether you're watching it here on Twitch or on YouTube, depending on when you're watching this. Welcome to another stream and welcome to another game dev stream. Oh, why? Hello, OBS, please? Alright, it can't tell what it wants to do. But welcome to another game development stream, and welcome to yet another stream of me focusing on work on the Bullet Hell Game Jam. I had a fair bit of fun with this the other day on Monday when I was trying to figure some things out with like some of the basics and some of the other little bits here or there. And I've done a little bit more since then. If I'll quickly just hop back into the engine window and just go over things. So, as you remember, we already had like all the wait, I switched the key for this. All the movement for the mech sorted, all the ejection thing sorted, aside from well, if the player is like moving down or down diagonally, then it doesn't really let them pass through, which is far from what we want, so that's one of the things I'm aiming to sort out during the stream. And another thing that we were working on was the enemy at that point, or the patrolling enemy that sort of moves back and forward and shoots projectiles. At the time, if you can remember what I was doing, if not, then I'll quickly walk through things again. Enemy AI, behavior trees. I was trying to sort things out using behavior trees, blackboards, using the move to, and that didn't work initially. Then I tried using just a regular task where it would just apply a movement input to the AI pawn to move it towards the point, because unless it's a character, like explicitly something that inherits from the character class, or if it's something that has a compatible movement component, the move to nodes won't work. So I tried making a custom behavior tree task to see if I could solve that, and unfortunately that didn't work. I was trying to go back and forth with trying to adjust things with the AI. Eventually, I managed to get the Move 2 node to work. However, because of how AI nav meshes function, that being that they can only move along like the surface of the ground. Whenever I brought the patrolling AI closer to the ground, it would force it onto the ground and it would just move that way. And that's not what I want for this project, for the Bullet Hell Jam. So I basically scrapped the behavior tree entirely, and instead I decided to use a spline. And now if you can see here, this is what I was using, or this is what I have been using to test the enemy. This pawn here was the one with the like the two patrol point widgets, which I don't really need anymore because of how I've changed things with how this works. But this spline, basically, it defines a path that an object can move along. This is essentially the same thing as what I did for the moving platforms in my other prototype. But instead, if I go into the code quickly, and I go into the spline follow path because this is where I have things set up, like the other one, just because I don't think I ever explained how that works, you have like the spline path, which you saw in the editor. It's created here like meshes and like box components and any other component that could just be created and made available in the editor. This also takes a timeline component. Now, if I go into the editor and, whoops, that's the wrong place, and I just go into a random blueprint. I'll just go into the players one, just for the sake of it, because and I need to make sure that I have it set to the right window. I'm learning from my mistakes. I am now double checking to make sure that I have actually set OBS to the right window, because every so often last time I would just forget, and you know, I would only realize a few seconds after when I was explaining things and going through testing stuff, and I'm like, oh wait, I didn't switch this, so I'm trying to work on that. But anyway, if I go into this blueprint and I say timeline, add timeline, the timeline component in code is basically similar to this, but so let's just name it temp timeline, because we're not keeping this. We're not keeping this timeline. I'm just showing this for you for demonstrations. If I double click this, you'll see that there's this little graph here, and like it's empty at the moment. If I add track and I want a float track, so like having a float value change over time, then you have this sort of singular track where we can add a key and basically define a set of points along this timeline, and you can adjust it positively and negatively over time. So you could have this one be at like basically the start of the timeline, and over 0.75 seconds it moves up slightly to like 0.5 or something, and then immediately just jumps back down. I'm not saying that this is what we're going to actually do, I'm just giving like a little bit of an explanation. Oh, hello Dragon, and hello here, thanks for the raid. I hope you did have a good rest of your stream, and hello Dragon, I am Video Game Boy right now, and I was explaining a thing. Oogly boogly. But basically, over time, can go up, can go down, can go basically whatever way. This is what a timeline would use. That's not very nice. But a timeline would have, like, this value here, and then we could use it for whatever, as, like, it updates. And that's just explaining it from the blueprint side, because if I go back into the code for the spline, it's a bit different. Like, the timeline component is made. It's not like it's an explicit node that just appears. It's just its own component. And then you have to add everything that happens, like as a event function, or, yeah, on timeline float and on timeline event for stuff that happens with the timeline. And then you just have it all play out, and you add, like, whatever curve you're going to use for your value, which is then passed on to the update thing. And this basically drives the movement for the enemy. I'm not going to explain it too much because then I'd be here all day and I'd be trying to find the best way to explain it for everyone. So just know that everything in there, and I come back out here, I really should compile the blueprint because that will bug me. Everything in that code basically drives this thing moving back and forth here. And I have stuff in the code that basically says, oh yeah, if you reach the end, if it's not going to loop, then just send it back the other way. And as you can see, it's also shooting projectiles. Like, every second, it shoots a projectile from one of those points that I defined during last stream. And I'm pretty happy with this. Of course, this is for testing purposes, so I could actually keep an eye on whether or not it was doing things. For the actual, Jam project, when it's, released, it will probably be, sped up, an awful lot, just to make it challenging for the player. But that's what's happening with that enemy. Now, one of the main things I want to get done during the stream is I want to focus on getting the turret enemy done. And if you can remember from last stream, that's cool. If not, then I will probably just explain things again. When we were talking about what kinds of enemies or obstacles we wanted two types. We wanted that patrol enemy that you saw right there, just kind of either moving around in the... Oh yeah, no. Give me a moment. I was in the source of explaining things and I didn't put music on. Give me... let me find if opera is... Yep, opera music is... We're going back to the Xenoblade music for the stream. And I am not apologizing for this at all. But I'll also adjust the volume there just to make sure it's okay. But anyway, as I was saying, there were two enemy or obstacle types we wanted. First, we wanted the one that moves back and forth or around or whatever and sort of fires bullets, in kind of a rotation. And that's what I've managed to achieve with this. Even if it's a little... but... Dragon, why did you do this? How could... Why did you... You gifted a tier 1 sub to Xenoblade Chronic. Thanks. This is the second time you've done something like this. The first one was to Mr. Beast, and now you're doing this at Xenoblade Chronicles. I love the streams. Goddamn. You were gonna do Mr. Beast again. Fuck you. Screw you for that. The other enemy obstacle type that we want is just a turret that angles itself towards the player. And I'm going to focus on trying to get that done. And also, there is another aspect that I want to try and sort out. Because at the moment, the enemy, or this enemy at least, moves backwards and forwards. It fires bullets. But the bullets don't exactly do anything right now, do they? And that's kind of, the whole point of what you want in a bullet hell game, or any game in general that involves, health and stuff. You want the player to receive damage, and you want them to try and avoid things just for the sake of keeping themselves alive. So, thing I'm going to try and focus on as well is getting, health stuff sorted out, and that will be using interfaces. Again, much like using the interact interface, so I could just do, a thing where each response to interacting with a thing that can be interacted with is dependent on how it's implemented in, whatever is made with it. I'm basically going to do that same thing with the damage interface, only the player is the one that's going to be receiving this, because they're the one that's going to be taking damage. I am being squozed. I guess that's me taking damage. I really should make a thing for the talkie thing where I could just be squoze. That would actually be pretty funny. Also, I don't know if it ever actually got sorted out because I don't know Twitch is... Yeah, no, my other emote still hasn't, like, it's still pending approval. I don't know why. It's so weird. Like, the T1, like, is now properly there. I don't know, like, if I managed to make it sort of larger than it was initially, but the other one that I drew is still waiting for approval, and that's kind of bugging me. It's been over a day. I guess eventually it'll be an instant, but at this point in time, waiting is painful. But yeah, back to the code. Gonna start making the adjustments for, you know, letting things be or damage the player. So right at the moment, I don't need spline follow path open, and I have like damage interface made, and I have the turret interface class made. I'll need the bullet open because I'll need that for, you know, when things come into contact with the player, or just checking for the damage interface stuff in general. But I don't know why it doesn't want to insta-approve my things. It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird with me for some reason. It doesn't like me that much. Also, in searching for my notes, I accidentally, right. Yep, there we go. Because in order to make sure that I can actually remember some things, I just do keep notes on hand just in case I blank on a few things, because I'm gonna know quite a bit, but at the same time I am going to forget things every so often. Blueprint implementable events, or is it blueprint native? I think it's blueprint native. Yeah, but also has a native. You're working on art again. Let's go! I can't wait to see that art finished. Because I was liking how it was looking when you were working on it before you streamed. Like, can't wait to see the end result of it. It's funky looking stuff. And I still haven't finished my thing that I was drawing earlier, but I'm doing it bit by bit. I'm doing it as and when I can. I'm not trying to make so much of a fuss over getting it done. It gets done when it gets done, and that's, you know, probably a big part of it. So if I can remember... Okay, right. Don't fall in. Be safe. F hit result. Hit A actor pointer. Just call it source. No, wait, maybe not source. Bullet. No. Hit source. Just to make sure it's a bit generalized, and then... Yeah, it's a controller, so... Just a generalized controller, not a... Like, not a player controller, not an enemy controller, just a controller, and it's just going to be called Instigator. Because we're basically saying, yeah, this controller is the one that instigated it, don't do anything with... Or, if anything happens, inform it that, you know, this thing happened. Right. So the damage hit interface, that's basically really all that I would need to do. Although, actually, one extra thing I guess I can add is float, damage, or an int. It could be an int or it could be a float. I think for now I'll just do a float, damage dealt. And I'll say equals 20.f. There we go. Right, so that's that part implemented. Now I need to open the players or the characters class or just the players class. I know it's just called RC_character, but I am just gonna keep referring to it as the players class or the characters interchangeably because I'm like that. I do things a bit, you know, in and out sometimes, not, you know, strictly sticking to one thing. Now, in terms of implementing the interface, I think it's... I need to look at my notes again. Yeah, it's also like define it as a public and then I damage interface. And then that includes the header, that gets that all set up there. And then, because it's a public... So... Take damage underscore implementation. And now... This just makes sure that, you know, the player is actually going to sort of take damage from the event. So if I go into here and say, I'll just put a UE_log. So, because we don't actually have health implemented as of yet, we're just going to put this there just to, you know, have like a little bit of response just to make sure that, you know, things are in working order. And we're just going to say player hit. Oh yeah, and while I'm at it, because I have a lot of UE logs in places where I've been testing things to make sure that they've been working, I'm going to comment out the UE logs that I've been using. Like, not get rid of them entirely, but comment them out just in case I ever need to use them for testing something in general again. Because I never know. It could literally just be a matter of it will be necessary, or it could be helpful for just regression testing to make sure that something is still working, and that I haven't broken anything entirely in the process of, you know, trying to do something else. I think I'm also going to, because I do have some in the patrol enemy. Yep. Yeah, I think that's all the ones that I was thinking of specifically. Right. Now I've got to close the actual project, because I could be doing it just live coding, but I'd rather not have the live coding just, you know, have it only be temporarily available, and then if I close the editor and reopen it without building from source, then it will just, you know, say, oh yeah, this doesn't exist anymore. You need to compile again, or you need to live code again. Like, this way, at the very least, it makes sure that things are just set properly, and it's just kind of permanently there, not just like a temporary sort of, like, availability of whatever I'm trying to test. But yeah, since we're waiting for the code to compile, and now this may or may not take some time, we may as well go into Clip Studio, because I still have that open, and I was still drawing earlier, so you see this boot right here. But we're not going to focus too much on that. I have another little space for, like, writing down notes where I'm trying to, or where I was trying to do my spline path follow for the enemy. So basically, what we want to do, I mean, the damage interface, I may as well sort of explain this thing here, because you know, it would be good to explain things, like, without the whole me trying to dive into overly complicated jargon and syntax and all that jazz. You know, make it understandable. Make it, you know, try and explain it in a way that people can understand. You know, if you're not a programmer or you don't develop games or you're not a software developer in general, then I want to try and make it so that, you know, while a lot of it is, like, very techy, very, like, code-heavy stuff, at the very least, it would be easy to get the general gist of what it is I'm doing here. So, I've already said before a little bit about interfaces, but an interface basically allows, like, communication from, like, one thing to another thing that implements that interface. So, for example, we have, trying to think of a good case for that, right? So, for example, let's say we have a bullet. And we're going to do this thing here to emphasize that, yes, this is our main point for this little diagram. So we have a bullet, and we have, I guess for now I'll use this to represent the player. And so how I would have done this starting out as a programmer, because a lot of this stuff I picked up over time in terms of, you know, making things a bit more agnostic and not, like, specific to whatever it is I was doing, is the way I would do it, or the way I used to do it is, or at the very least, let me explain it how I would have done it in Unity. So say that the bullet hits the player. Like, as you can see here, bullet hits the player. Then, in the bullet checks, oh, if so-and-so and so was player, damage player, or if it was like, if box, then damage box, and then you would also probably check the health for that box to make sure, oh, is this box, has this box reached a certain level of durability? If it has, then just break it, just destroy it, or just turn it into a broken box. You know, keep the object in the space, but keep it, like, just make it broken instead. And while it's easy to understand starting out, because, like, oh, you're not going to know much about interfaces, you're not going to know about trying to, like, decouple, like, uncouple code, so, you know, it's independent, you're not, like, tweaking one thing that's related to a bunch of other things and then potentially breaking that in the process. You don't know how to do that at that point, so, like, this seems fine enough for, like, someone starting out, but as you sort of grow to understand things a bit more, you realize, oh wait, you know, this thing is actually kind of bad. We don't want to check absolutely every single option and then have it interact directly with, you know, the subject of those checks, like the player or a box or an enemy or something. And even then, like, you would normally also check, oh, did the thing this collide with happen to be the thing that fired this thing? Are you sure? Is this okay? But, but instead of, you know, doing that, an interface basically says, oh, like, for example, for the bullet, we have, or as we've already done, we've done, like, a damage interface, so we'll say, take damage, and then basically whatever we need to pass through, like, the damage taken, who shot the bullet, like, literally anything else you need for this. And on, like, the player side, or the box side, or literally anything else, you can implement this, like, individually, and whatever you need it to do on that end, You could basically just have it, like, because I've explained this previously, though I'll go over this point again, because it's very helpful for me. Like, it's not just helpful for me to just explain it, just in case people haven't been here, or people may not remember, or so on and so forth, but... Let me think. Yeah, no. An interface defines what it is. It defines what a thing is, but it doesn't actually say what that thing necessarily does. Like in the origin for it, it's not what it doesn't say exactly what it does. All it just says is, yes, this is what it is, but what it does yet is not known. It depends on how you use it, where it needs to be used. So, say for example, on the player, I've lost Clip Studio, because I was like checking OBS again just to make sure things were like coming through okay, and that the bit rate wasn't dropping, because, you know, internet does kind of be fucky sometimes. But basically, for the players one, you could say, oh, they just take damage. If they've taken like enough damage, then they die, simple as. Or if you hit a box, say, oh hey, this box receives damage. Does this damage exceed how much how much this box can take? Or whether it's like, oh, this box has taken damage, we'll just break it instantly, or literally anything else like that would need it can have its own implementation. And that's how useful interfaces are. You can basically just have the bullet check, like, not for like a specific class, but you check whether that thing has the interface. So checks if interface, then do interface stuff. You can have it do the interface stuff, and then whatever else happens on the bullet's side, like if it destroys itself, or generates an explosion, or splits into multiple different things, then you can have it do that on its own side. That it can do that for itself. It doesn't need to rely on, say, having the player present or a box present or anything like that. It can just do whatever it needs to do on its end, and it can do that even if like this thing doesn't have, or whatever it's finding or has hit doesn't have the interface. It can just still do whatever it normally does on its own. This is just an added thing that can happen if whatever it hits happens to use this thing. And if it does use that thing, then whatever happens on that end and what you basically wrote it to happen will just happen. That's basically it. I know this may have gotten a little bit like long-winded in the end, but let me just try and sum it up, because I tend to waffle on when I'm trying to explain things, because I get so lost in trying to go through things step by step, explaining like, oh, you know, this is how we would have done this before, but this is better because it does this. So TLDR, I hope, because sometimes I suck at summing things up. Interface defines what, not how. How is dependent on what it needs to do. So basically, the interface defines what the method is, but not how it works, and how it works is dependent on what is needed in a given object or class. Because if you can remember, I also using interfaces for interactable objects. If you can remember that white cube that's in the test level, basically, like, the interact interface, I don't have it open in the code, I don't think. That sucks. I can open it if I go into Games. Source. Yep, found it. And if I switch back over to Clip Studio... No, not to Clip Studio, to Rider. I'm getting my things mixed up now already. It's only half an hour into the stream. Well done. But, in terms of the interact interface, like, interact with object, like, it's given, like, its name. It's given, like, where it can be used, like, in the blueprint. It can be called from the blueprint. It can do whatever. But how or where it can be used is, like, there's no limit to where it can be used. It's not strictly, like, confined to a single class. Where it can be used, you can use it anywhere where you need it. And that's what makes it very useful as well. But that's enough on the interface side of things, because I was explaining, like, what we were doing with the damage interface to basically make damage for the player possible. To make it so that it's possible for the player to be harmed by, you know, the obstacles in the level. That's what we want that to do by that. But now, I want to do a fun little sketch diagram for what we want the turret to do. So, say for example, I'm just gonna draw, like, kind of a box in this top left corner. Because, you know, I want to be able to sort of demonstrate where it could be, like, where a turret could be placed. So, in terms of, like, where a turret would be placed, like, you could have it, like, upside down, you can have it, like, on the left or on the right wall. Or you can have it just, like, you know, slap bang on the ground. You can have it, like, wherever you need the turret to be in a given space, depending on what challenge you're trying to present to the player. Maybe you're trying to give the player, like, a corridor of stuff to avoid, and they're, you know, and you have, like, a turret either at the end of a hallway, and you're trying to sort of use, like, boxes or walls or stuff in the level as cover, or you need it to, say, like, you have another hallway, but you have a door or a wall you can break open, and what you need to do is to basically bait the turret into firing at the wall, just to break it open. So that's like some cases where it could be used, and I think that's some cases where we are going to use the turret, especially for, like, the door breaking stuff, because I feel like that's, like, a good use of this kind of stuff for, like, puzzles and whatnot. But, like, this is, like, so far, this is demonstrating where it can be placed, where it can be used, but what we basically need to do is we need to get, like, I guess, like, if I'm going to explain this in a way, like, what we need to get is, like, say you have the turret here, and I don't do it just like, oh, like, just so you understand this is a turret. I do it out of instinct, just because, you know, at the very least, it's labeling things to make sure, you know, like, I myself can remember where things are. And I just do this all the time. So, it's not me doing it, like, in a disparaging way. It's me doing it out of a sense of, you know, this feels right. So you have the turret here, you have the player here, and what we need to get is... I'm trying to remember. I know there's a thing specifically in Unreal's code for this. It's to do with, like, getting a look-at rotation. But, like, we need the look-at rotation for it moving, like, up and down. But what I don't want... So I'm going to draw a bird's eye view of the turret. What I don't want... Like, you can tell because I'm going to put the base, like, here, and I'm going to shade it as well, just to emphasize that, yes, this is the base below the turret. Otherwise, it's going to look a bit weird if I leave it just looking plain as it was. What I don't want is to get the rotation of the turret moving left and right. Because otherwise, I feel that definitely messes things up in terms of, like, direction it would fire a bullet in. Because, Because while I'm constraining movement to being 2D, it's still within the 3D space, so the chances are, if I have, like, the turret moving ever so slightly left, or ever so slightly right from the player, they fire a bullet, it just completely breezes past the player, it doesn't hit them at all, and whatever semblance of challenge or struggle is basically removed. So, to that end, like, I'll get the look at rotation, like, from the turret to the player, because that's what I need to get, like, the direction that it needs to look in towards the player. And then oh yeah, no, now I remember. Like, do that, and then sort of remove, like, that left and right moving component from the look at rotation, just to make sure that there's no room for error. And I noticed that stream started a little bit. But yeah, all in all, that's what I want to do for the interface. And it's getting closer to finishing, compiling the code, so you're not going to have me just waffling on about what I'm intending, or how I'm intending to do things, or how things will work under the hood completely the entire time. But I do like these little detours that I get to have with just explaining things, because, like, not only do I get to try and find a way to explain it to people who either don't know game development or are looking to get into game development, because I don't necessarily consider myself a teacher. I'm not necessarily, or at the very least, as far as I'm aware, or as far as, like, my experience tells me, I don't teach normally. I don't try and teach normally, because sometimes I feel like how I would try to explain things could be kind of lost on people. But this helps me find better ways to explain things to people, like, not just in terms of, like, what I'm doing here, but just things in general. And, I almost got lost by the music there for a second. But, like, not just that, but also in the process of essentially teaching people things, I'm also reaffirming what it is that I know, and it will make it easier for me to remember in future, because from my understanding and from my experience, if you're actively trying to essentially take what you learn and you sort of pass it on to other people, or help other people with what you've gone through, or what you've been doing, or so on and so forth, then it helps to sort of reinforce that as, like, oh, this is correct, this is something that I actually know. So it helps a lot. And I've noticed the whole sort of phenomenon of I'm slowly getting better at remembering these things basically happen in real time. Like, the day after I've streamed stuff like this, and then the instant I've done that and hopped on to, like, doing this bit of work afterwards, I just, when I'm trying to implement something, I think, oh wait, this is, this requires this, or this needs to use this for this, or remembering certain things for, like, getting certain values, like, trying to convert, like, a local space vector into a world space vector from the widget things, and, some other things as well. And it's very helpful. It's very helpful, because then it helps to make me feel more confident in myself as a dev, because I guess, in a sense, for the longest time, imposter syndrome's a bitch. You feel like you don't really have the right to be doing a thing. That kind of sucks, because you could know so much about a certain thing. You could do so well at a certain thing. You could be very good at implementing, like, a program or a function, or you could be great at art or editing videos, or just doing anything. Like, it doesn't have to be creative stuff. It could just be just regular tasks in general. You could be so good at that, and then you just don't have the faith or confidence in yourself, and you feel like that, you know, you're a fraud or a phony. And like, I've definitely felt that quite a bit with learning like game development and programming and trying to do things more. Also, if that burp came through, I'm sorry, and if not, sorry to have announced it. But yeah, like, but at the very least, this is like going through this slowly and I guess teaching it in a way and learning the best way to explain things is like, it's useful for a lot of things. It's very helpful for a lot of things. And while people may or may not necessarily understand the full extent of it, if at the very least they have the sort of basic understanding of, oh yeah, this happens because of this, then I consider that a success. I consider that, you know, worthwhile. And I feel like that's one of the most meaningful things about, you know, trying to learn more about... Hello back! I am Tails! You've missed me explaining, you know, what I'm doing with what I'm working on during stream, and also... And yeah, you came back to a diagram. You came back to a diagram of the second thing I was explaining, and you also came back to me reaching the end of explaining, like, you know, how this whole process of, like, basically teaching people is kind of helping me become a bit more assured as a dev. And, you know, like, things and blobs, yes. And that's the tea all gone. But don't worry, because the code is slowly getting there, compiling-wise. So, at the very least, once... I feel like it's definitely taking a bit longer because of the fact that the player character, like, now not only does what it normally does, inheriting from character, but it also implements an interface, and that's like a whole header file being added to... like, this code, and all that jazz. Oh god. Like, I feel like I would not be able to explain, like, it's done, it's finally done. But I feel like I could not begin to, like, simply explain the impact that header files can have on compile times, because it's a massive impact. It's a massive impact, and it stacks. It stacks a lot. If I get rid of the diagram that I was doing for the turret, and I explain, like, I know I just said I feel like I couldn't find a way, but I'm gonna try and find a way to explain it anyway, just because. So, like, normal object classes, so, like, the character. I'm just going to use the character as an example because it was the first thing I thought of. The character has the .h file and the .cpp file. The header file, as I explained, like, when I started streaming game dev, and I'll explain it again for people, it basically defines properties, what methods are, but it doesn't actually sort of explain what they do. It's basically like interfaces, as I already explained. Like, what methods are, but not what they do. Not what they do. And then the CPP file, basically that's like where methods declared, and what they do is written. So if I was to like use a very simple example of this in the context of the player class, and also Unreal finally started opening, that's the bloody patrol enemy. If I explained it in the context of the player class, and I really need to shrink this window so I can actually see the CPP file. For example, like here we would say, oh, like this camera, or this spring arm, or this true or false boolean, like these are properties, and then we'd have like methods like this. We're saying what they are, so this is move, this is interact, this is enter a mech, this is a thing that happens like with pawn possession and whatnot. I'm not explaining that yet, if anyone ever wants me to explain that. But we're just basically saying what these are, not what they do. Unless it's a force inline method, in which case what it does is just basically simple. It's just a single thing that it does, and then it just does it. And then in the actual CPP file, we just say, like, in move, we're getting, like, the input, and we're, like, moving the player based on, like, the input direction, and so on. And also, we're just setting the rotation as well, but I haven't sorted out the smooth bit yet, but I can do that eventually. Maybe this stream, maybe during this stream I can do that. So that's all well and good and all. That's basically explaining, oh, this is, you know, like, the H is what it is, the CPP is what it does. You know, that's as simple as I can explain that. However, if, say, in a class such as... You know what, I'll still use, like, the inside of the player class as an example. If you can remember from the player class, I have some things defined at the top with the class, like, command word. So if I go here, you see class U camera component and class U spring arm component. That's forward declaration, and that's a thing that basically says, yeah, so we're going to declare this thing, like, yeah, but say, like, this thing does exist, and we're going to complete that later. We're not going to actually completely define that here. We're just going to essentially give you basically the outline for a class and then fully complete that in the actual CPP file. Because if we were to say, like go to the actual character class, like when I'm actually creating the camera and the spring arm, I'm actually including the header files for those things there. And the reason for that is because in every single header file, like every single header file has its own like set of values, its own methods, its own things that it does. And when you include that header file into like either a header file or a CPP file, you're basically also saying, yeah, we're also including this into this class's header file. And if you were to say, like, you include this header file and this header file, and then you include this header file in another header file, you're not just including that previous like header file's data, but also the one before it. And as I said, it stacks if you keep including it in like many places, and it really bogs down how quickly it takes code to compile. So the whole point I'm trying to say here is that we mostly leave header files for the CPP files because it basically makes it so that we're not bogging down how long it takes for things to get ready. And then if we need to, like in the very rare case where we need to include it there, then we just do that anyway. But in those cases, they're just fairly lightweight anyway. But that's enough of me explaining things, because I've been explaining things for quite some time at this point. Look, the editor's open. So, I'm trying to remember what... Oh yeah, I commented out the things, and I also did... Oh yeah, no, I remember now. I had implemented the damage interface. I got so lost in trying to explain things that I forgot completely what I had implemented before I started compiling the code because of how long we were waiting. So I'm gonna go into the output log because we need to actually see Oh yeah, no. Right, so of course it won't be able to tell that we implement the damage interface yet, because I haven't added that. But if we go into the player blueprint... Like, this is me just kind of doing things step by step in a way, I guess. And that's not too bad either, because doing things step by step would just make it easier to digest. You know, break things down. Do things as programmers do, and break things down. So if I go into class settings, and go into interfaces... Like, of course, this is a default thing anyway for a character class, but the damage interface is inherited because we included it in the code. So that exists now. So... so now we're going to go, and when does the game get models and stuff? That will be sorted out, I think, later on this week, because the team I'm working with is doing things bit by bit. Oh shit! Yo, hello EB Game Wolf or EBF Game Wolf. Welcome to stream. Thank you for the raid. Glad to have you and everyone else here as well. But yeah, as I was explaining, the group I'm working with is like working on models and stuff bit by bit. Those should be like they've been doing like the player and the mech, and I think they've been working on the enemy as well. So I'm hoping like tomorrow or Friday or whatnot will actually be ready. Hello, welcome to chat, and glad to have you here. Hello, EBF. Welcome. Honestly, like it's slowly taking shape because it's, you know, it's working things out. You know, it's been quite a while. I know the last time you showed up was like during a waiting soon bit for one of my Spyro streams, and I was having internet problems at that point. So sorry about that, but it's been a while, and it's great to have you people here. It's great to have like more people here to sort of see me kind of ramble on about this kind of stuff. but you know, that's the whole part of like, if I'm just trying to explain things, I am going to ramble because sometimes I'm a little bit of a meanderer when it comes to trying to explain things. But you know, as long as you don't mind that, then yeah. I'm using Unreal Engine. I'm using UE5. Like, it's in the 3D world space, but I've constrained it to just 2D movement. Yeah, no, except I don't have a rubber duck. I have a Cyndaquil plush, like a Cyndaquil, like, Pokemon sitting cuties plush, that I just kind of talk to, because, like, it's a funny little guy that I just have here. But it still achieves the same effect. So, but yeah, UE5, it's in the 3D world space, but it's, like, constrained to 2D, and, you know, trying to figure out, like, bullet hell stuff is a new experience for me. Like, it's still, like, some of the standard things I would be used to, like, checking for damage, and, you know, trying to make sure, like, interactions function the way that they're supposed to, and so on and so forth. Like, you know what, like, I feel like as long as something works as a good substitute for a rubber duck, then, like, there should be no reason to sort of, you know, be wary or be judgy of what people use for their substitute for a rubber duck, because, you know, it still works. It still works, you're still trying to explain it. But instead of, like, just the rubber duck in this case, I'm also explaining it to people here as well. Like, people may or may not necessarily... I'm not making Toho. Heater, not every bullet hell is Toho! We've been over this multiple times. Not every bullet hell is Toho. See, after the game jam, if I wanted to just say, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to indulge in this and try and make a Toho-like game, I'll just do it. Because it could be good practice for other things and just testing to see if what I've done here is, you know, just... if I can carry it elsewhere, you know? You would combine... yeah, no. I would make it difficult specifically because you said, you know, every bullet hell is Toho. I would make it very difficult specifically because you said that. Yeah, glad to catch me. You went on an hour overtime on Rabbit and Steel. It's too addictive. I haven't heard of that. I should probably actually, look things up. Because there's, like, during 4's stream the other day, there were some bits that I, like, added to my Steam wish list because, like, stuff that people in chat mentioned or because of stuff that he mentioned as well. But I haven't... Rabbit and Steel. Okay. It's a co-op roguelike that recreates the essence of high-level MMO raiding in a randomized... Oh! You know what? I have seen Final Fantasy XIV. I know a lot of people love Final Fantasy XIV, and I have debated on playing FF14 as well. So, you know what? Actually, I have an idea for a future stream, and I will probably just get Dragon in on this because 1, she loves roguelikes. 2, she also likes Final Fantasy, and I think she was also debating playing FF14 as well. So I'll send this to her in DMs and say, like, honestly, you know what? That it sounds like a good idea that I could just do. That I could just like drag Dragon into it because she would really enjoy it. And it sounds exactly right up her alley. Yeah, no, like, because I feel like raiding in an MMO, because, like, I've only ever seen, like, tidbits of either people on the internet playing FF14 or tidbits of my brother playing World of Warcraft. And I feel like in a sense, it's fun to do, especially when you've got a large group of people, but at the same time, you have to put in so much, like, time and effort into getting things ready, planning things out, getting all the people together and all that jazz. And then it, like, feels like, here's an easy way to access this. Here's an easy way to do this, but also in a way that's completely different. Like, in a way that's reminiscent of it, but also in a way that puts its own unique spin on it. And I like that sort of idea. I guess that's what we're trying to do with the Bullet Hell Jam, because what we're doing here, like, Bullet Hell, like, style gameplay, but blending that with kind of, like, puzzle-solving stuff as well is what we were choosing to do. And I'm liking how things are taking shape so far because of some of the ideas that we were writing down and putting that into action and all that. True, to be honest though, the raids in FF14 are very doable. They're just, yeah, like, if I had to think of a similar sort of situation, I'd also say, like, raids and, like, endgame PvE in Destiny 2 is kind of a similar thing. Like, it has its place with people. It has its place with me and, like, people I know and a whole bunch of other people in the Destiny 2 community. But at the same time, not everyone plays Destiny 2 just to play the raids. Sometimes they just play just to have, like, just to play with their friends, or they play for the PvP, or they play just because. Like, they're not necessarily interested in doing, like, some of that stuff or some other content or other bits. They play how they want to play. And it's the same with a lot of games. And I feel like it should be more encouraged for people to just, play how they want to play instead of, gatekeeping things. Yeah, like, that's a very big part of things. Like, not gatekeeping things and just letting people, have the freedom and fun for things. Also, I realized I've gone on a long spiel with it, and I... Right. Right, let's actually get the damage interface all sorted. So, where is handles? On here. That was the Right, so first things first, I want to... I need to actually get a reference to the include... Right, damage interface.h. And one thing I want to make sure of as well, so float distraction. I'll just copy the U property so I don't have to type it out all the way because, like, sure, typing in U properties, like, isn't too terrible, but having to do it repeatedly for multiple fields, especially if you're doing a lot at once, does tend to get a bit tiring. So I'll just copy this and paste it and then just sort of go from here. So float damage or bullet damage. And then I could just have that be, you know, whatever damage we want it to deal. So we have that sorted, and I was just checking things under my desk because things were feeling a bit like weird below my feet for some reason. Things weren't in like, or for some reason my chair leg is on top of something. You know, weird thoughts to have during stream, but you know, it's whatever. But I need to remember how I did this for the player and the interactions, because I know there's a specific way that I had to do this to make sure it worked. So interact. So if get class implements interface. Yeah, now I remember. My legs, they're funny. So if other actor get class implement... Oh, wait. Was it this implements interface? And then it's U damage interface static class. And then by doing that, it's... yeah, I interact interface, execute, and then we pass the thing in. Yeah, there we go. So I damage interface, execute, take damage, and we need the object, so other actor, then so hit, so I'll throw in hit here, and then hit source is this, and then instigator is I'll just say null PTR at the moment because I actually forgot to account for, you know, sending the or assigning whatever is firing this bullet as its owner. Let me think. I can sort that out in a bit, but for now I'll just assign it as a null pointer because this isn't necessarily doing anything in every single instance. So, and I set 20 as a standard. What's it saying about this? Function has 5 parameters, but cool. But it's a I guess for some reason default parameter is being a bit weird. So execute, take damage, instead of just, you know, calling like the take damage underscore implementation, it just makes it possible for, like, regardless of if it's a blueprint object or a C++ class that implements this interface, it just makes it so that it can still work regardless. And that was something that I learned the other day during stream, or I think during stream, or it was after. I can't remember. I don't know why I can't remember, but this stuff works. This stuff works very well, and I'm very happy with it. So, now we're gonna just compile things again. And I'm hoping this doesn't take too long, but guaranteed it will still take a little bit of time because Unreal and C++ likes to take its time when it comes to... how long have I been developing games? So my history with developing games, I studied games development at university, like, between 2019 and 2022, and that, of course, was fun during my first year when, COVID broke out and lockdown happened and everything. That's, you know, like, that was fun to try and learn things. But, yes, I guess I could say, like, learning and, like, I've been learning it and trying to get it done for, like, 5 years, I guess. Trying to really develop things kind of started, I'd say 3 years ago, when I was trying to work on stuff during the summer of my second year. And then I guess more seriously after, like, I left university and graduated 2 years ago. But I guess it's difficult to pin down, but I'll just say that for the past 5 or so years almost, I have been learning games development and trying to sort of... Though the process of learning Unreal itself has essentially been like the past year or so, because before that I used to use Unity, and then there was the whole sort of fiasco with Unity and like the licenses and all that jazz, and I know that they decided to eventually just walk things back, but at the same time I lost a lot of faith and trust in Unity at that point, so I just stuck with Unreal for the time being, though I am planning at some point to try and learn Godot, or how people pronounce it. I'm not too sure. I pronounce it Godot, though smite me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, because I want to make sure I pronounce things correctly. But... oh yeah, no, like, there's nothing wrong with having the ambition and the drive to make the thing that you want to play. Because I think with the devs for Risk of Rain and Risk of Rain 2, the whole motivation behind, like, making... it's Godot. But yeah, I think with the devs for Risk of Rain, they were making the game that they wanted to play, and quite bloody honestly, they did... Godot. Yeah, Seb always pronounces it like Godot, I think. Yeah, from what I remember. But in terms of... yeah, like, they were making the thing they wanted to play, and they did it very well. As, like, if anyone has ever played Risk of Rain in chat, then you'll know how... oh, okay. Oh, Godot, yeah. But, like, Risk of Rain and Risk of Rain 2, very fun games. Love them. Have had so much fun playing them, like, when I started playing Risk 2 last year. Yeah, it's just a sense of, like, there's just a funny itch that it scratches in my brain that's like, wow, I am able to turn absolutely everything into dust around me. And that's fun. Like, get the right setup, and everything just turns just into dust in an instant. And that's fun. Like, Risk of Rain makes that feeling of power so fun. But, as I was saying, like, there's nothing wrong with having the ambition and drive to make something that you want to play. Though continuing on that feeling, have I ever played Origami 2? No, actually. Actually, I have not really heard too much about it, but I'll... unless I'm wrong... alright, so I've seen Origami 1, I think, but I have not seen 2. So, this is kind of new to me. Like, you know, between Four's stream and this stream today, like this stream of mine today, you know, I'm learning so much about other games that, like, have already been released or are in development, or, you know, have kind of sort of like walked on by and no one's noticed. And it's seeing more of these types of things that it's nice to see, because it's very refreshing. That's like that's what I really want from the games industry more, is like something that feels refreshing, you know, rather than just the same old that we've had for so long. Also, I need to actually test... Oh, wait, yeah, Yep, if I get another bullet shooting at the player... Yeah, like, the damage interface works. It's a stealth game that really encapsulates the ninja feel, and I recently finished it, and it really scratched that I am the ultimate assassin feel. But then I found out the studio went under about a year ago, which when I finished it... Yeah, no, like, it's sad. Like, you could have a game that's absolutely great, that feels like it should have done so well, and should have, like, reached, like, such a big audience, but especially with how it would make you feel during the gameplay, and in that sort of moment-to-moment action. But then you find out something like this that happens that is like, well, that's just kind of soured things, because then they won't really be making things like this anymore. They're like, no one's continuing it or making something similar, and that's that. Like, taking a deep breath before I start going on this tangent, because this has been in the public's eye for the games industry fairly recently, because of how much of a shock it was to happen, especially with how well it did. Tango and Hi-Fi Rush, and the fact that Microsoft decided to shut them down, despite Hi-Fi Rush being such a big deal when it released last year, and the fact that even though it was like just a quick shadow drop, it was such a fun and enjoyable experience, and there was that sort of sense of, wow, when you get into the rhythm of things, it feels satisfying to do combos and to chain things together and to, like, explore different ways to form and extend and bridge combos together, and it's just, like, and also the art style, the writing, the music, even though if you were playing with a licensed music on, you were playing with a licensed soundtrack, but even so, like, it's such a good game. And the fact that Tango also, like, developed, like, a whole bunch of other stuff beforehand, but because of, like, Microsoft, they won't be able to develop anything like they've done ever again, sucks. And I hope that, like, whoever was there at the studio lands on their feet, either at another company, or manages to just form, like, their own development studio, their own thing, like, if they're not so disheartened with the industry. Like, the way I see it, like, it's a shitty publisher thing to do. Like, I swear, I don't know if this is, like, a competition, or, like, something that... or something that's just, like, pure happenstance between, like, Xbox and Sony. But it feels like they're both competing to be the absolute worst publisher, you know, despite EA holding the crown for that for the most part. But... yeah, no, like... I know, like, everyone makes the joke, like, oh, yeah, the top being the absolute grimy bottom. Like, absolutely. Like, sorry about that, but absolutely. Like, I thought it wasn't possible to try and get as nearly as bad as, like, EA or Ubisoft or however people perceive Nintendo nowadays because of, you know, emulation stuff and the copyright things and, like, fan games and whatnot. But seeing, like, Xbox shut down studios that are doing well or have potential, or Sony being heavily restrictive on, you know, where their games are sold, or, like, how they let their players play on other platforms, it's just, like, it's, wow, how are you doing this? Like, you've been around for so long, you've seen so much of the industry, like, rise and also crumble to dust, and you're still being this shitty? I love that. Thanks here. Me in the worst publisher competition when I see my opponent is Microsoft. I mean, say what you will about the console wars and who was winning, like, across multiple generations, but at the very least, in being the worst publisher, they're on level heading, you guys. And I'm sorry if that was loud, but, you know, just getting a point across. Yeah, damage interface works with the player now. That's good. So, that's all doing things. So, the next part that I want to do is the turret enemy. See, I didn't forget. Honestly, like, don't knock indie developers. Like, you've had, like, sure, you have some, like, the odd indie game that's kind of, you know, like, it's okay. Like, it's not groundbreaking. It's, like, but at the same time, it's not entirely lackluster. But then you have a lot of the cases in the indie scene where you just have, like, something that's very charming or very unique, or it takes something that's already been done and puts its own spin on it, or it essentially just manages to recapture a feeling that people once had with a certain series or franchise or gameplay style that they feel has been lost over time because, you know, of how, like, modernizing certain games and gameplay styles work. And I love seeing so many cool things come out of the indie scene. Like, Risk of Rain, I guess, in a way, like, it's still indie. Like, Hoppu is still indie, you know, despite Gearbox or being their publisher now. Which is kind of sad. But I still consider, like, Risk of Rain 2 like an indie game in a sense, even though it's, like, super big. Like, big popular roguelike. Yeah, like, they were made by people who had an idea and executed it. Like, sure, you can have some studios that, like, are fairly big, but they still make a game feel like a game. Even if it's, like, you know, returning to a franchise that has existed, like, or a game that, or a sequel to a game that, like, was released years ago, but, like, the sequel still manages to capture how fun it is, and how good it is to play. Or manages to expand on things surprisingly well, despite, you know, the game being so old at that point. And I'm gonna throw it out there, Devolver Digital, in terms of, like, them as a publisher and whatever games they have under them, they have quite a few indie devs underneath them that make very different sort of feeling games. And that's insane. Because, like, not too many, like, publishers have that available to them, in terms of, like, studios under them. But it's incredible. It's incredible, like, what happens sometimes in the indie scene, because, like, God. Like, I remember, it was last month, yeah, towards the end of April. Yeah, like, the days I could play by stuff like Kingdom... Yeah, Devolver I love as a publisher. Devolver does good stuff. Like they published Cult of the Lamb. They're publishing a game called Angerfoot, which is made by, I think, Free Live? Yeah, Angerfoot, which is being made by Free Lives, which I got to try out, and the demo is also on Steam. The dev for Free Lives, the dev for Angerfoot also made Genital Jousting, if that tells you anything about them as a publisher. But Angerfoot as a game, very fast-paced and fun. Like, I guess in a sense, channels some of that, like, early Doom energy in how fast it is. But, like, there's a lot that... I don't know if we would still... like, I'll leave this up to you in chat, because, I guess I'm not too certain on how to consider things in this case, but with Supergiant Games, would we still consider them an indie dev? Or, I mean, I guess in a sense, yes, but in a sense, no. But regardless of, like, the perception if they're still indie or if they're not, like, as indie as they were, Hades and Hades 2, like, I haven't played Hades 2 yet. Like, I have the early access, I haven't started playing it yet. But Hades was an absolute gorgeous game. And from what I've been seeing, like, from the, like, people's reactions, Hades 2 somehow manages to expand on things so much. And that's just incredible. Like, everyone's reaction is like, how have they managed to do this? How have they managed to take Hades 1 and somehow grow from it even more? And that's what makes me excited about, like, when I eventually get to hop into it, because it's just, wow. I love Supergiant Games. Like, Supergiant Games, in terms of, like, being, like, a studio, yeah, I guess they would be, yeah. Like, I guess you could, like, you would still consider them, like, indie devs, but I could say a lot about Supergiant. Yeah, you know, it's not for everyone. Like, not every game has to be, like, a snug fit for everyone. Like, a game has an audience for a reason. I just happen to, like, love how the game looks and feels and plays and stuff. But Supergiant Games, like, their whole thing, like, their entire lifespan as a studio has been, like, the isometric angle. Starting with Bastion. Bastion was, like, the very first indie game that I ever played. Of course, it was the mobile version of Bastion, but still, Bastion was one of the first indie games I played, and I loved it. I had fun with it. I got that 9 years ago. And I also played Transistor in the same year, which, like, I think it was, like, the iPad version for that game. But, like, I had fun with them, like, fun with both of those games. And, like, I'm not gonna lie, I wish maybe, like, I hear good stuff about Yoshi P. Like, like, I hear a lot of good stuff about Yoshi P. I also hear that, like, the reason why he pushed back, like, the next expansion for FF14 is because he wants people to have time to play the Elden Ring DLC, and that's absolutely based of him. Like, imagine just seeing, like, a big DLC for, like, the game of the year for 2022 releasing, and you think, you know what? I'm gonna let people have time to play that before I drag them back in for the FF14 expansion. And that's cool. That's a cool thing to do. I love that a lot. You know, that's one of those odd things that I saw about Yoshi P, and I think, yeah, this guy gets it. He gets, like, letting people have the time and space to be able to do things. And then, you know, saying, you can come back and play this when you're ready to. Like, that's cool stuff. That's pretty cool stuff. I get the strong feeling they will just do it anyway. But yeah, turret enemy. So there's nothing in the CPP file for now. So public, protected, whoops, that's RPU, not protected. Private, public. Also, in terms of, like, the whole talking points of stuff during stream, this is, like, for this kind of stream, and also for art streams as well, this is the kind of stuff that I like, is just, sure, I'm, like, getting on with bits here or there, I'm slowly going through things, or I'm talking through how things are working behind the scenes and stuff, but I just like the talking. I like being able to just sort of ramble on and engage and sort of say, like, throw things back and forth or sort of explore new things. I remember an interview with him when World of Warcraft took a dive, and he had the question, how does it feel to be at the top? And he just went, without World of Warcraft, there would be no FF14. It's a great feeling, sure, but we don't feel like we've won. Honestly, like, that's like the whole sort of like, it's not like a dev looking at the downfall of a game and being like, haha, 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 we're doing this, we're winning. Like, it's actually looking at what inspired them and thinking, you know what, they've fallen a bit, and that's sad. We want to be able to compete with them, you know, as they were, as they are, rather than, or what we expect or see them as, you know, their legacy, rather than being like, ha, you've fallen, we win. Like, that's like respect on such a high level that's not all too commonplace, which is kind of sad. And I wish there was a lot more respect like that. Also, I just feel like, because the whole thing with, like, some games, like, if they're live service games, or MMOs, or just games in general, like, I wish there was, like, more positive interaction stuff like this between, like, the devs or community managers and the consumers. They're, like... Because the thing you notice online a lot is that some people are not particularly friendly when it comes to interacting with devs. And I'm pretty sure it's been seen a lot that some people are just absolute asses. Like, some people are just probably some of the most unkind people when it comes to interacting with devs and treating them in a way that they don't really deserve. Like, sure, like, why are you complaining that, you know, they didn't do this thing that you thought they were going to do, or that they said they were going to do, but they haven't gotten time to sort it out yet? Like, development takes time. Everything takes time. And, like, sure, you may have, like, a rough idea of how things work from, like, a dev side, but there's so many instances where people act like, yeah, it just should be simple as doing this and that, right? You can do this, you can do that, you're the dev. But it's not always like that, and some people don't understand. And it's kind of sad, and I wish there was, like, a lot more understanding between, like, devs and their communities, because it would be a lot less, like, flame wars and arguments on Twitter, that's for sure. And would be a lot less incidents like the stuff that happened with Bungie, like the dev harassment, the community manager harassment, and all that stuff. True, on the other end, like with Helldivers, some devs were a bit trigger happy against their own community, but I've noticed the other way around far more too. Yeah, a lot of, like, communities, or not a lot, but some communities, depending on the game, depending on, like, I guess, what their expectations are and how long they've been there, or what their attitudes are in general, tend to be... They tend to... I guess in a way, they tend to just be very gung-ho about trying to get their point across, even if it means just doing it in the worst way possible. And that's the absolute worst thing. So, for this, I'm going to grab a bunch of notes from elsewhere, because I need to remember how I was doing this for another project, so I can do it for this one. Because I've already explained, in a way, the theory behind it, but I still need to actually remember the specifics. So, also, like, sorry about that. Also, I know, like, sometimes I do kind of, like, go on about, like, when I'm listening to, like, a game's soundtrack and I think, wow, I wish I could have played this, or I wish I actually got this thing so I could experience this game, and so on. It's kind of like this with Xenoblade Chronicles X, because I think this is a song from Xenoblade Chronicles X? I'm not too sure, let me double check. Yeah, this is XCX, like Xenoblade Chronicles X. And I love Xenoblade Chronicles, I love 1, 2, and 3. I love playing those games, but I have never played X because I never had a Wii U. I never got a Wii U, so that's the one Xenoblade Chronicles game that I haven't experienced. And in terms of, like, Xenogears and Xenosaga, I have not experienced those either, and I would like to do that at some point, because, you know, I would like to see what came before Monolith Soft was formed and they gave us, like, gave everyone, like, the Xenoblade series. In range. Yeah. Okay, looking at this, I kind of understand. Right. So, I do like how this kind of oh god, I'm gonna sound like this reminds me of Persona. Ball check for player in range. So this will be checking for if the player is in range. I'm going to return false. I'm going to leave you be, however. I'm very tired after today's stream. Have a good... Yeah, you too! Like, sorry that I couldn't step by because there was, like, things that I was taking care of. But I'll try and be around for your next stream. And... honestly, like, have a good night. And I hope you had a good day and a good stream as well. Right, so now getting on with this thing, gonna have the return false so it doesn't throw have a fit with everything, because it does that sometimes. Yeah, thank you, thank you ever so much for that. Like, that means a lot. Thank you ever so much. I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing here. Right, so making sure that this doesn't throw a fit, as I said, and now... And I'm not going to use, like, I'm going to say here, A actor, pointer, target, player... and see, now this presents a unique problem. So I'm gonna go into Clip Studio and I'm going to get rid of these notes from earlier, because that was me going on my long ramble about things in the headers and CPP files. Yeah, that was a nice little yap sesh for me, like just going through a whole bunch and. But yeah, as I was saying, so with checking if the player is in range, as I said, this presents a unique problem. If I was only checking for like the player object specifically. Okay, that doesn't actually... right. So say we have the turret here. It just... You know what, screw it. At this point, it just looks like the bullet bill cannons from Mario. Or from Mario 6... Or the cannonballs from Super Mario 64. So we have the turret here. And we have, like, for argument's sake, we have the player here. But we also have the player... Like, we also have the player mech. I'm gonna... See, I remembered how I drew the legs for the... Or mostly remembered. I'm gonna throw hands with these ears, oh my lord. Also, pardon me, sorry about that. Ugh. But... I'm guessing you're struggling with mob's ears? But yeah, so... As I was saying, so for argument's sake, the player, the mech. I don't need to label it this time because I've done it quite a few times already this stream, so it's in my head now. It's in my head. So, say here we have, like, a radius or line of sight that the turret can detect, like, the player in. If I was, say, only using the turret to only detect player, then it would only check for the player. And while this is okay when the player is, like, moving around, like, moving up, down, left, right, and whatnot, it changes when the player is in the turret. Because at this point, it's no longer, like, it's still targeting where the player would be, but with how the player works in terms of, like, where they disappear to when they enter the mech, they're just turned invisible. Like, their collision is disabled, they turn invisible, and then, like, you can just drive the mech around and whatnot. The turret will still be, like, angled to where the player is, not where the mech is. So, you could have the mech, like, move all the way, like, here, near the edge of, like, where it would be targeting in. And it just simply would not focus on the mech at all. It would focus on where the player was, or quote-unquote still is, and it would just try shooting at something that's invisible. So this is the unique problem that it presents. So I have one of two solutions that I've thought of for this, like, just at this point, just at this moment. I have thought about two solutions. One, check for both. And by that I mean check for both the player and the mech. And for both, checks the player to see if they are not, like, be in mech. So check if they're, like, not in the mech, or if they're not, like, of an object type that basically says they're in a vehicle. And for the mech, say, like, if it's, like, being piloted or not being piloted and whatnot. Which, this is kind of cumbersome, because this feels like a case of, wow, this feels like it would be long-winded and may cause problems if I was to change this code at all later down the line. So I'm going to opt for 2, and this is kind of like, I'm kind of winging it with this one. So if you remember or don't know, or either one, I will explain it anyway. So each object, or each object where necessary, like, say for example, the player character, or, like, the patrol enemy, although this isn't so necessary in the patrol enemy. So let's just go with the player for now. So, like, input is handled through a controller, and the player will have, like, the player controller assigned to it. And with, like, any controller, whether it's, like, just a standard, like, AI controller, or a player controller, or just a bog standard controller in general, like, you can essentially get, like, whatever, like, pawn or actor it is currently possessing. So, if you're following me so far, like, if we can get whatever pawn or actor is being, like, controlled by the controller, we can essentially go in to, like, in the part of the code where we basically check. Hold on, let me look at my notes, just to double check. No! 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 Pawn as in like a chess pawn. I'm also going to give this like a nice little bit of shading because I find it rather funny to do sometimes. Like, man, look at the shading on this. This is like a small little thing. But I'm getting distracted. But hate shading. Shading is my enemy. That's sad. So I think for the turret enemy, tick would probably be necessary. So tick, I think it's a public... Yeah, tick is a public method. What nice shading. Too bad that little guy... Ah, FPS chess. That's a deep cut from last year. Hello, Zazel. Welcome to chat. Hope you've been doing good. I haven't played FPS chess since last year. But that's kind of crazy. Maybe I should ask Dragon if she wants to play it again at some point, just to get on just to get on a binge of playing it, and then everyone being like, "Oh hey, you're playing FPS chess again." Oh, you weren't referring to it at all. Oh, but well, funny that it kind of sounded like it in general, but. Oh wait, no. I have a better idea for this. So we have a actor, target player, and then we've got F timer, handle, check. Check. So check controlled actor handle, and then F timer, handle, check. Range handle. And then view property, edit anywhere, blueprint read write. And then meta equals allow prior. Also, I don't know why. I've been on a sort of odd kind of kick of watching like movie reviews from YouTubers and stuff, and it's been a bit of a funny like little like jaunt, I'd say, because it's seeing them review movies that were like, oh, people grew up with these, but they don't understand how they became cult classics or stuff like that. Or on one occasion, going into someone's deep dive about like all of the Pinocchio movies that were ever made in the history of ever. Float. You should watch Pyrocynicals. Listen. That's it. Oh, I did it as an F timer handle again. Whoops. Look, he may be a fat fur, but his main channels are at least normal. I'll take your word for it, maybe? Whoops, I keep... Right, so those two are set. So, check controlled actor. So I'll just do a thing here. So A actor pointer. Trust, before the incident, no one even knew about that. Equals get player get world. There we go. The incident TM you had to specify. Is this one of the sad songs from Xenoblade 3? Hold on. It is a step away. I am not listening to this because it's sad. I am not reliving the end of Chapter 5 for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 unless I was to ever just play through the whole game again, just because if I fuck up this ear one more time, I will scream. You can do it, Heater. You can do it. Just... So if controlled actor, then target player equals controlled actor. So that sets that, and I think I'll just have that like play every like 0.1 seconds just to make sure it works. So now for the actual like checking if the player is in range, because I only want the turret to angle itself towards the player when they're in range. So if target player, me when I control the actor, I am the director. Hold on. Oh wait, I realized I was not in Clip Studio. Yeah, there. 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 And action. Right. So, back to my notes and back to this. So, we get the distance between... So, float distance equals F math dist. Or is it? No, it's U Kismet math library. Or is it F vector dot distance? Yeah, it's F vector dist. Right. So dist between actor location and target player actor location if, and then I need another variable in here. The other one I'm actually going to need now is just one that basically says if the player is like in this range, then we'll start shooting at them. Float. Minimum fire distance. And we may want this to be like specific to each one or just have a general one, but this is just making it configurable just in case we want it to just be different for each one. So if distance is less than or equal to minimum fire distance, then return true. Else. And then remove this because it can no longer reach this. Right, so that's that check all set up. But the tick is necessary. If check player, it's check for player in range. So if check for player in range, and because that's a boolean, we're basically saying if what this returns is true, then rotate turret to face player. So now we need another method for this. Also, like a long sort of conversation segment, or the long little stretch of like where I was just talking about indie games and indie devs and the whole scene and the industry and stuff. I'm very happy that for at least a little bit of the time that some of the like the follower emotes were getting uses, and I like seeing that happen because you know, Dragon made those emotes, and she did very well with them. So, I do like seeing when the follower emotes get used. Also, speaking of the emotes, I do hope that the other tier 1 emote that I submitted is approved soon. Because, that's like a long time to wait. Oh. Right. Right, so we only want it to... Yeah. And then rotate... This is part of another thing. Right. Okay, right. But I do need a thing that's... void... This will be, like, for the fire rate stuff. Oh wait, no, I don't actually need this, because this is constantly checked. Okay, so... My mistake. So, void... check... fire conditions. But I shouldn't have gotten rid of that other timer handle. That was my mistake. Whoops! Check... fire condition... And then we want the... I'm basically just... I just got rid of them and replaced them with 2 other variables. That was my fault. That's my B. But... check... fire... conditions time. So in the turret enemy, and that's the constructor, in the begin play, that's what we want. So get world timer manager, set timer. So first I want the check for the controlled pawn. So check controlled actor handle, this turret enemy, check controlled actor, and then check controlled actor time. And then also I want to set up another timer, world timer manager dot set timer. So check fire condition handle, this check fire conditions, and then check fire conditions time. Oh wait, I need to have them loop. True. I need to make sure that they loop. Otherwise, having them just like this means that they execute once. And that doesn't work for what we're trying to do here. So... right, I do need to actually define this method just so we can get it written out. So, check fire conditions. If target player equals... so if it's null, then we just return. We don't do anything here, because we don't want to try and do anything or shoot anything if the player doesn't exist. So, if check for player in range, and... so to do check if player is alive. Though actually, now that we're getting into sort of... I guess we will need... right, character, we'll need a boolean here, bool. And I do want to make it visible anywhere, because I want to actually, you know, check that this is all working. U property, visible anywhere. Bool, B, player, alive. And then the player's constructor. This is a thing. This is a thing that we can do with like variables in their default values. We can put this colon here, and then say B player alive, and then define true as its default. And that's not something that you use all the time. You use it in some cases if you want to force an object to have like a default values, or like a set of default values. But this works. And then here we want the force in line just to get this value. So force in line, void, get, player, alive, const, and then return B player alive. And then that's done. Oh, I put a void, not bool. Ah, right. Okay, so in this case, I am gonna have to actually have it be not an A actor, but as a class ARC underscore character pointer, and then that changes everything in here. And I'll get rid of those other brackets at the start because I already had this stuff here and I wasn't going to move it in there. So that works now. So target player equals controlled actor. Oh, wait, no, oh. See, this was the unique problem I was talking about. Oh, wait, whoops. For now, I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm going to come back to this problem. Because at the moment, with things the way that they are, if I was to try and check if something is still alive, then it would make it more specific and... I don't think it's possible to have, like... I don't know. Let me actually look this up. I'll have to come up with a solution for that. But for now, for the fire conditions, so we'll just say check if player is in range, then... Oh yeah, I also need to override fire bullet. And I guess I'm also going to need to make a thing for where it can spawn, so... in component pointer, bullet, spawn, point. Bullet spawn point was sub object, U scene component, text. There we go. So fire bullet. And then we get so bullet pointer new bullet equals get world create spawn actor. So in class bullet to fire. And we need the, so, bullet, spawn point, dot, get, actor. Get component location. Get component rotation. Right, anyway, I'm gonna quickly go for a couple minutes break to the bathroom. I will be right back. I also think that, yeah, the music is not on the BRB screen. I will just fix that. So add browser. No, output capture. No, it's a browser. It's a browser source. No, I made it. Oh, I made it a window capture. That's what I did. Hold on. No, application audio capture. That's it. Right, the music's there. I'm gonna be right back. Okay, and I'm back. Whew. Right, that wasn't too long. So, I'm trying to think, what else did I do for... Where's the patrol enemy? In the... Oh, wait, no, I have to actually... I forgot the template. That's the... I always tend to forget. I forget the template. There we go. Right. So that's that spawn done. Then new bullet. Get projectile movement. Got velocity equals bullet spawn point. No, get actor forward equals new bullet. Get actor forward vector and then multiply that. For now by like a random value like 250, just for testing purposes. Just to make sure it works. And like if it does, it works. And then if it doesn't, then we can always adjust and tweak things again. But the one thing that I'm missing is this, the actual rotate to face the player, and I need to find that elsewhere in my notes. So yeah, look at target. Right, so what I need is, of course, I have not set up a method for this yet. So void rotate turret to player, and then f vector look at location. Don't mind me just vibing. So what we need, like, we've got the method here. And then for the actual implementation, right. Let me think. So f vector look to, so this is where we're looking to, or the direction that we're looking to, or the point that we're looking to. I guess it's more accurate to say it's the direction. We're getting the direction of where we need to look to for the turret to look to the player. So equals look at location. So we subtract the first point from the second point. So get actor, I guess mesh. Get mesh. Get component location. Because we're not going to be rotating the whole actor. Rotating the whole actor would be very backwards and very, I guess it just wouldn't make sense. So we're getting the mesh, like, the component location for the mesh. We're going to do that like this. And then once we have the look to, I'm trying to think, because I think pitch is up and down. Yeah, I think pitch rotation is up and down. So F rotator. You know, it would be pitch. So look at rotation equals F rotator. I'm just going to type this out. So pitch, yaw, and roll. So everything else will be zeroed out. And then we're going to get look to dot rotation dot pitch. And that should get us the up and down, like, rotation. Because now I'm actually remembering things clearly. I'm just going to take this time, you know, this little detour to actually explain what I'm talking about in terms of rotation stuff. So we're gonna hop into Clip Studio. I'm gonna get rid of this diagram. I'm sorry, the clacker, the action thing. I'm gonna have to get rid of that. So, in terms of rotation, let's just say that this thing here is like a sphere. In like the worst possible way I could have drawn it. La-di-da-di-da, this is a sphere. So, in terms of rotation, like in game engines, there's like 3 axes for rotation, much like there's like 3 axes for movement in a 3D game. For rotation, there's pitch, which I believe is up and down. There's yaw, which is like, it's rotating like around. So it's rotating, so pitch is up and down. Yaw is rotating like normally from like left to right. And roll is a bit of a weird one. Roll is kind of like, if you were to take, like, this like, say we had a player, and we were to rotate on the roll, so we rotated them like 90 degrees positively on the roll, we would end up with them rotated like this. The roll is that type of rotation. Pitch is like looking up and down. Yaw is looking left and right, and roll is actually like basically sort of moving it around like this. That's basically what the pitch, roll, and yaw are, or the pitch, yaw, and roll is. And now that I'm remembering how those work specifically, we need to zero out the yaw and the roll for the lookout rotation in order to prevent the turret from like looking left and right and twisting around. Yeah, like a lot of in some ways Blender as well. But we only plug the pitch into this lookout rotation so that we only get the up and down rotation. So and that makes sure that the turret will only look up and down, rather than, like, trying to look left and right. So, that's how that's working. Get mesh. Set world rotation. And we're going to set it to look at rotation. Oh, wait. However... yeah, R interp 2. Right. So... rather than just have it immediately snap to, like, where it's looking to, we're going to interpolate. We're going to have it smoothly ease into where it's rotating to. So, we're going to get mesh... get... component rotation. We're going to get the... we're going to plug in the look at rotation. Get world. Get delta seconds. And then I'm going to just plug in like 15 for the value. And I think that's that's basically it for that line for setting the world rotation. That's basically it for rotating the turret. So, at the moment, I'm not too sure. Well, I'm certain that this would work in another context. So target player, get actor location. Right, so to go through things again, in the begin play we set up 2 timers. One for checking what actor is currently controlled by the player controller, and the other one for checking the fire conditions. In check controlled actor, we're basically taking the player controller in the world, of which there's only one, because of there only being a single player in this game, and we're getting the pawn that's being controlled by it. And then we're just setting it here. If this exists, then we set target player to this actor. And this makes it so that it's possible for us to basically just say, yeah, if the player is controlling the mech, then the turret will just look at the mech and not just at the invisible player on the ground, or wherever the player is. Check fire conditions. For the time being, only checks if the player is in range. Later on I'm going to fix it so that we will probably have a component that it will check for rather than, you know, the actual class, and say, you know, if this, you know, health component is like, oh, this player is dead, then we can sort of check for that instead. Or... But yeah, that's how that will work. And if this condition is met, then it will fire the bullet. It will spawn the bullet at the spawn point, and it will set its velocity, like, based on its rotation, multiplied by just this value here. In tick, so every frame, if the player is in range, every frame the player is in range, the turret will rotate towards, like, looking at the player. And then we'll get the look to, so the look at location is where the player currently is at all times when they're in range. Look to takes where the player is and gets the direction for that by subtracting, like, where the mesh is, like, where its component is. Then we get the look to's pitch rotation and plug that into the look at rotation, and then we just interpolate to that smoothly so that it just slowly moves, like, the turret's rotation, like, to face where the player is, like, slowly, not snapping it instantaneously, because that wouldn't look good. I know that was quite a bit for me to explain at that point, but it will be better once, like, I get to properly show things off. But yeah, in terms of, like, Maya, at the very least, I mean, I'm not too sure because I haven't used Maya, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And also, Blender's is very similar or the same. Oh yeah, crazy thing that I've seen happen with Twitch and its emote guidelines. I'm assuming the emote guideline adjustments are probably the reason why this why this is taking so long with my other emote. But apparently they're being overhauled. Twerking emotes are now being allowed. So among twerk can be used as an emote, or if you have an animated emote in general that twerks, then you can just use that. Right. In terms of... I should actually... This is going to take some time. Because so much has been changed, so much has been added in the header file, so much has been added in terms of actual code, so this is definitely gonna take its time. So I may as well swap back over to Clip Studio while we wait for that. And like based on what I've sort of so it's coming along now, is it? That's good. That's great. So so for the turret, like this is an example, at like the end of the mesh, the spawn point would be there, or kind of like further on like there. And then when it fires, it will just start from here, like say that the origin is like at the end of this bullet here. It starts from here and then travels so that it goes, say, in this direction, it just ends up further away. Then, of course, over time, it will just, like, destroy itself. It will just disappear. So it just doesn't remain and not overload things in the game. But in terms of bullets, like, in terms of bullet types, I don't know if there will be, like, other things like, oh, we have a bullet that when it hits, like, a wall, or just detonates on its own. So let me just sketch this out. Like, I'm not too sure if we're doing this. Like, if we have a bullet that when this happens, it will just split off into, like, little mini bullets that sort of arc out from where it's destroyed. And I know how this could probably work. I could probably just use the same system that I did with the patrol enemy, where I have, like multiple spawn points with different locations and rotations defined, and then, like, have them appear, like, only if there's free space for them to appear. So, if it doesn't detect, like, a wall within, like, a small space of it, then it would spawn a bullet. Otherwise, if there was, like, a wall being detected right next to it, it wouldn't spawn the bullet, because it would just, like, instantly spawn and be destroyed, and that would possibly slow things down. So, I'd probably have that work as that. Or, if we wanted, say, a bullet that can home in on the player, for example. So, like, having the bullet just sort of follow along and do that kind of stuff. I'm not too sure. As of now, for the moment, of course, we're going to have, like, the standard fare with bullets. We're going to have, like, this functioning this way and this functioning that way. So, you know, not too complex, not demanding too much, but at the very least, it's a bare minimum that can be expanded upon. Right. But that's basically an outline of how I could possibly do things. Oh god, this is the one thing I always fear with doing this. It's how long it takes. Because there's the possibility it could take so long that it lasts basically the remainder of stream, and that's never a good thing. Because there's, like, other little bits I could be getting on with, but at the moment, it's kind of an impossibility with how, like, with how it's compiling at the moment. So the most I can really do is just kind of, like, ask, like, chat what's going on, or illustrate things that I'm planning to do, or that I'm currently doing, or explain things that, like, anyone has any questions about. Because I'm open to that. I'm open to, like, if anyone has questions, if they want me to sort of explain something that they're curious about through, like, this medium, then I can do that. I can explain things, or try to explain things that way. I may not necessarily nail it the absolute first time, but I am slowly teaching myself better ways of explaining how all of this is working, or anything that they're curious about regarding this whole thing and this process and all that jazz. There is a lot that I could just talk about and talk away about while waiting for this code to compile, because it loves taking its time, because, you know, C++ is... it's kind of finicky like that. Can you teach me the saxophone? Hold on. And that's the saxophone. Thank you very much for coming to this very quick lesson on how the saxophone. I hope you found that very insightful, as much as I did trying to teach this. Can I send you my... yeah, you can! Like, why... saxophone! Like, don't, like... in your case, don't ask if you, like, can send anything. Like, I trust you not to send me anything terrible. Or anything that could possibly risk damaging my PC. Like, stuff along those lines. I guarantee you wouldn't send that stuff unless you were somehow hacked, but... at the very least, one thing I'll say, can you even do something like that? I don't know. I think it's possible, because people have done fucky shit with QR codes and other things before. And videos too, I think. So, I think it is possible. It's scary what people can do with technology and, like, just even the most basic things just because they found ways to manipulate it. But... but I know you're not going to do that, because that would be very mean to me, and that would make me very sad. Yo! This is coming along very well. Holy. Honestly, you brilliant bastard. That's all I'll say, you brilliant bastard. That's all I'll say. You... Hey, it's slowly getting there. The code's compiling. My word. It's finally happening. Slowly. Very slowly. Quick, if we burn a saxophone at the stake. Hold on. We'll do it at the corner. I didn't draw the saxophone very well this time. We're going to burn a saxophone at the stake as a sacrifice so that we can get this code to compile quicker. This is another vocal song! A Moment of Eternity from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna. We're skipping this. Because I don't want to get flagged for the vocal songs. But yes, we're going to burn a saxophone at the stake. You know, gonna get the smoke. Just, you know, get that nice and smoking. You know, just to really convey that the saxophone is being burned. There we go. Compile faster or it burns. See, I'm taking your lesson. We're burning it at the stake so we can compile quicker. It's not working. I'm sorry, but it has to be done. It's slowly moving! Also, this is just funny to just have in the corner. Like, you just have, like, the little saxophone that I drew. And then you have my diagram for explaining, oh, what I want some of the bullets to do. And then you just have the saxophone burning at the stake. It's funny. It's funny just to have that there. Like, you wouldn't expect it, but now here it is. You know, saxophone be damned. We're damning the saxophone. Whew. Uh... Come on. It's like when it gets to the 1 out of something bit, I keep thinking, you know, this is the point where it's almost done. This is the point where we're actually going to get to the end of compiling, and then it just still takes quite a bit of time. Right. Let me think. Of course, doors are going to be like breakable doors are going to be the easiest thing. Because it's like literally just going to be a thing that you attach like the damage interface to. And like, if I decide to make health based on like a component, so like health comp for like health component, then like the damage interface will communicate with that. Just to do that. God, this makes me think of how much I love Xenoblade Chronicles 1. But then when it comes to actual like doors that require like having something activated, I think I need to look at something else that I've already done or already learned on a course to see, just to remind myself how to do that in this engine. Because it can be done, I just need to look back into it again. Like, say this is like a panel to push something onto, and that door is linked to it. And then the player pushes like the cube or box or whatever onto it, and then that door should just open. Like that. You know, simple as. It's not asking too much, it's not too complex, it's still like a simple interaction. I do remember that the song is used in like some, like a few like fairly emotional parts of the game. Like it's used at the start of the game, and it's used like in places throughout. Love Xenoblade 1. I need to do my periodic just going through and replaying the game over again. That I normally do because of how much I love this game. I remember. So, those who have been here for a long time, or personal friends may know this, but for people who definitely don't know this, 3 years ago, when I was properly getting into streaming towards the end of my second year of university, I decided, like, although I was doing a Kingdom Hearts 2 playthrough at the time, I decided, like, I said to myself, you know what? I'm 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 gonna do my yearly my sort of yearly playthrough of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 anyway. I may as well just do that as a playthrough and just take people through this game that I love. Kind of like what I did with the Spyro 3, like the original Spyro 3 playthrough, you know, just taking people through a game that I played in my childhood because, you know, absolutely love the game. And I thought of doing that 3 years ago with Xenoblade, but I started it, did like 1 or 2, maybe 3 streams of it, but because of having to go home for the summer, and because I didn't have like things in place for being able to do shit here at home for a long time until December of 2023, I wasn't able to continue that playthrough in any capacity. And I guess it's kind of sad that I didn't, because I was having fun with those streams. There were little things that I was doing to spice things up. Like I was like, whenever there was dialogue that didn't have voice to it, I was going to give like a random voice to a character. And I did some funny stuff with it. And if given the chance to do something like that again, I would do that, because it would be pretty fun. And maybe I could do this for, like, a future playthrough. Like, eventually I just decide, you know what? I've got you all here. I'm going to play through Xenoblade Chronicles 1. You can't stop me. I'm going to show you why I love this game and this series so much. And I'm going to do that. The engine's finally loading up. So we'll just give that a moment to load, and we'll be doing this one thing, checking this one thing, and then we'll be wrapping up there. Honestly, 3 hours, almost 3 hours, has gone by so quickly again. And I never expect it to go by so quickly, but because I get so lost in doing things during stream, like whether that's playing a game, getting on with the development work, just talking to you guys in chat, or just anything in general that happens, I always lose track of the time. It's incredible, really. And I never expect it to go by so quick. It makes me wish that I had more time, like, I was able to stream for longer, or at the very least was able to start streaming at an earlier time, so that I could just, you know, go for like a couple hours longer. But I feel like, aside from some instances where it's basically required, I would not be able to sort of last for too long streaming, like last for an excessive period of time. So, you know, it depends. It depends, I guess. And then it's just actually booting up the engine. It does that. There we go. Right. Okay. So now that I've got that done, I'm gonna quickly go into enemies, make a folder for the turret. Turret. Blueprint class. Turret enemy. Come on. Oh, hello. BP underscore turret enemy. And what we're going to do is that we're going to... Oh, damn it. Right. I realized my error. So I've made the object. But what I meant to do, in terms of where the spawn point was, I set up the attachment completely wrong. I attached it to the root component, not the mesh. So get mesh. I want it to be attached to the mesh instead. Because then if the mesh rotates, then that thing will rotate with it. And that's what I want. Oh, yep, that literally did it in no time flat because it was only a minor thing that I was changing. Whew. So BP turret enemy now should now have the thing, yep, set to its mesh. Perfect. So set the static mesh. I want to set it to a cube first. And I want to squish it down to, say, 0.3 on the Z, and then take that and scale it to, like, say, 0.5. And then, this is just for the sake of testing. Put that there. And then bullet to fire needs to be set on the class itself. Bullet base. And then check control angles. The minimum fire distance would be... I'll just say 50 for the sake of it. Check fire condition. So check controlled active time will be 0.1. And then this will be... every second? I'd say, maybe? Just to be safe. Right, there's no guarantee that this actually works on the first attempt, because that's the thing with programming. It can just be absolutely crazy how sometimes it will just work just like that, and other times it will just be you scratching your head over whether or not this is working properly. Okay, this doesn't seem to be working. Done something wrong here. Oh well, I feel like this is something that that I'm gonna fix either after stream or tomorrow, because I'll probably take a bit of a break for the rest of the night. But that being said, thank you ever so much for showing up to stream. Thank you ever so much for being here. I really appreciate you all being here, whether you're here directly or watching things back on the VOD, here on Twitch or on YouTube, depending on when you're watching this. As for next stream, that will of course be Friday, and as for what I am doing, I am not entirely sure yet. I will be taking a break from the game dev streams. Rest assured, I will still be doing work on the Bullet Hell Jam in the background, but as for the streams themselves, I will be having a break stream from dev stuff for the time being. Probably until like next week or so, maybe. But as for Friday, I may actually choose to dive into Hades 2, because I've been meaning to do that. I have been saving playing the early access for Hades 2 for when I stream it, and I feel like I'd want to do it soon rather than later. I've been waiting to play it. So, yeah, thank you ever so much for being here. This stream was fun, especially like all the little talk and debate about the industry and stuff as a whole. If you had fun with the stream, if you really enjoyed it, drop me a follow. It will help out a lot in the long run. And if you want to keep up with stream announcements and the like, or just announcements in general, or just want to talk, then I have a Discord server. The Discord server is right here. And I also post announcements on the Twitter. That's in the bio of the channel, so that's not too far from here.